You are listening to The Objective Jerk. And I'm said jerk. What's up? How's everybody doing? All right. Here we go. Right before New Year's. I didn't think I was going to do another podcast before New Year's. I was thinking it was going to be after, but... and I thought I was going to not, It's hard, man. It's hard not to follow politics. I don't follow it like, crazy, but I do catch stuff. And then when I hear something that's like, what? A lot of it, I'm just like, whatever. I'm done sweating the small stuff. But there are some things that I just can't, I can't ignore, So let me ask you something. I actually meant to start off with this, but I suck at this. Remember back in the early 2000s when Somalia pirates were everywhere, going after tankers and different ships and taking hostages and they made a movie about it with Tom Hanks, which I never saw. And there was people were hiring for security for these ships and all kinds of stuff going on. And then it just kind of disappears. Now, it still goes on, but the amount or the level is just dwindled drastically, right? And it's like, man, it's kind of crazy how they just stopped, trying to rob and steal, but they haven't. Instead of riding a boat, acting like pirates and attacking ships and holding people hostage, they're stealing and embezzling U.S. taxpayer dollars from the U.S. taxpayers, more specifically Minnesota. Somalia has been stealing, it's like the biggest, stealing so much money from Minnesota taxpayer, possibly U.S., I don't know, I think it's just Minnesota, that they've stolen enough money to cover Somalia's like debt deficit for the country. You know what I mean? Like, it's insane. Like this just, I don't even, dang it, I meant to do the bullets to keep me in order. So, just recently, I should, it was on X or whatever, right? But a guy, I saw the clip for it. I was kind of scrolling through. I don't think I saw it on X though. I'm not really on X very often, but that's where the guy posted it. So this is an investigative journalist, and yes, investigative journalism they used to be rock stars. Now they're kind of looked at as frauds, but now they're coming out again because the tides have changed and they're starting to investigate, all the corruption that is the Democrat Party. And just so you know, there's a lot of investigative or reporters working for reputable or used to be reputable, news media outlets for decades that were actually CIA. So there's that too, but that's not what this is about. Let me see. Let's see if I can find. Let's see. I gotta learn how to keep talking, even if I'm just mumbling or whatever. I'm trying to find the name of the guy who. Oh, Nick Shirley. Okay, so this guy is an investigative reporter. He basically knew the answers already, but did the video, and this guy, Nick Shirley, with another guy who helped him, or maybe brought it to his attention, they would go to all these different daycares throughout Minnesota, right, who all received, thousands, hundreds of thousands, even, like, some of them were like $1 million um, over 1 million. Let me see if I can find it. Um, funds in taxpayer money, because they had like 40 something kids there registered for daycare or whatever. So they get this money, right? And these places are all over. 1.26 million for one. Not all of them were like crazy, but it was a lot of daycares. And then when he shows this video, he goes up to these daycares. All the windows are all kind of covered up from the inside, so you can't really look in there. The doors are locked. You go knock and nobody answers. And when somebody does answer, they're like, "Hey, I'm looking for daycare for my son." They're like, "Why?" "What do you mean why?" "Because I need daycare." And it's all just a front. It's all just fraudulent businesses, fake daycares reporting fake numbers saying, "Oh, look," and they have the help of liberal Democrat judges and politicians so that they can send all this money to Somalia so they can bring people over, so then they can have people voting for these Democratic lawmakers, because that's the only way Democrats can win. I'm not saying Republicans have never cheated, don't cheat, or whatever, but most American, whether they're like left-leaning, right-leaning, center, they don't want our country to be invaded. They want, some people don't want any foreigners, but some people do, but they still want it to be people to be vetted. Most rational people want, some sort of control over the amount of people and make sure they're vetted and they're not criminals and there's no whatever this and that, because this is what happens. You had Biden in office, open borders, tons and tons and tons and millions of people coming in. And it was all just to gain votes. It didn't work though. But I'm kind of getting off track. So you get a Somalian born senator, or no, what is she? What's her face? Omar bitch face. Who hopefully she loses her position because there is actual real evidence of her marrying her brother to grant him access to the States so he could come over to the States. Now, this is nothing new. Many people, lots of people have done this, I know. Yeah, I totally spelled her name wrong or whatever. Political, so she's a congressman. But anyway, so you have this individual, right? Which, by the way, so she divorced her brother and she's been married to this other guy who does like money. He's got a firm, but all of a sudden their website is totally just wiped clean and shut down because of this daycare thing going on. Like, this is huge. It's like it's looking to be the largest, hugest, the biggest. I'm starting to sound like Trump. The hugest and largest. No, he doesn't say large. The hugest, most biggest, but fraud ever that we know of in the States. And this is just Minnesota. So Minnesota. So this is only what they know. So this is not a single instance. You know what I mean? This is going all over the country. It is. This is why people couldn't understand why. How is it this person's doing this and this and that and blah blah blah? Because there's all this kind of fraud going on, and this is how they're getting money. Some of that money goes towards the Democrats and to grease the wheels with politicians and whatever, and then the money's going to Somalia. This is Minnesota taxpayer dollars have paid for terrorism. How does that feel? to know that you live in Minnesota and your taxpayers support terrorism. That's awesome. That's awesome, right? No, it's not. Okay, so there's this going on, right? You got, this is just pretty recent too, so it's still kind of coming out, but it's disgusting, dude. And the FBI, like, oh, we've, dude, I don't know. Kash Patel is kind of, I don't know. I kind of think he's a douche. He needs to get fired. He just kind of, oh yeah, we're doing stuff. Yeah, I don't know. They need to put Hegseth. I can't ever say his name. Hegseth is his name. And then what's the guy that's in charge of deporting everybody? The big, like, lisp dude. Like, they're getting shit done. That's who needs to be in charge of the FBI. But it's like, I don't think the FBI, I don't think they'll ever allow somebody that will actually do the job. It's always going to be corrupted. No matter what. I know you're listening. No, not to me, but somebody is. Well, other than my listeners, my 2 listeners. Yeah, I got 2 now. What's up? No. Anyway, okay. So you got this, these fake daycares, millions upon millions of dollars going to Somalia, different whatever, and then of course politicians, and then you got judges that help it along the way, right? All this kind of crap going on. And then there was this politician from Minnesota, right? She was in June 10th of 2025, she was the only Democrat to vote against her party when she voted against giving health care funds to illegal immigrants in Minnesota. 4 days later, she was assassinated. Talking about Melissa Hortman, right? On June 14th, 2025, Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman was assassinated in a shooting at her home in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. She was the leader of the State House Democratic Caucus, was killed alongside her husband. Earlier that morning, State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette were shot and seriously injured in their home and nearby Chaplin and hospitalized. So, and then they later identified this guy, Luther Bolter. He was charged with the shooting, right? And if you read, he was conservative, right? He didn't like that, where did I read it? Didn't like abortion, this and that, and all this kind of supposed right-wing kind of ideology. The guy was appointed by our almost vice president. What's his name? I can't remember his name. But when you read about this dude, they're trying to make it like, oh, he's a conservative, so he killed her. What the heck's the dude's name? The stupid dumb shit that's the governor of Minnesota right now. Why can't I think of his name? Walz, there it is, Tim Walz. So he was appointed by Tim Walz, right? And then they're doing all this crap, and then a couple days later, she's killed. So if anything, if that is all, this whole little blanket of lies is true, why would somebody who was a right wing, who didn't like kill a Democratic governor who was actually voting in his favor as far as what they were trying to paint him as? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I think that she was the target, and then this guy went after the Hoffman guy because they lived and shot at them too to make it look like, this guy's just going on to kill a bunch of Democrats. But when the point is Melissa Hortman was the actual target, that's just like, I think I talked about this once before, but, this Hoffman guy was shot in his home, but he survived. So that wasn't really, hey, don't make sure you kill so and so because they're affecting the outcome of our dubious plans. So 4 days after she voted against that, and then she got assassinated, and they try and paint it, make it look like it's some MAGA hat wearing individual. And now you have, there's like headlines while I was kind of looking up some of this stuff. Minnesota Republican begs MAGA to stop Hortman murder conspiracies. So they're like, oh, you stop the like they're trying to say like, because it is, is she dead? Is it related to all this kind of crap? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But it is a little strange, right? I always say one thing by itself is not okay, whatever. But you have all these little things going on, and it's like, and then there's more too. There's so much more it's ridiculous. Like how they're not even trying to hide it anymore. You know what I mean? Because then you have dipshit Republican whoever this is. Oh, don't do the don't make these conspiracy theories. And then all this shit kind of goes on. Nobody goes to jail, which is bullshit. I'm so tired of people that are in some kind of political. They never go to jail. They just disappear. They retire away somewhere. Maybe they're murdered. But it's like, I'm so tired of this crap, man. People need to be held accountable. Like the worst criminals in the history of the world are politicians, and none of them ever go to jail. It's like, I don't know. Was that kind of it? I think I talked about briefly. I kind of talked too quick, but just take all that in for a second. You know what I mean? I mean, even this Hortman, that really is. I mean, that's conspiracy and like, ooh, that's kind of crazy, whatever. But the bigger problem, the bigger issue, the bigger story is the fraud going on. I mean, it's out now, and most likely they're gonna nip it in the bud. The thing is, though, is anybody gonna be held accountable? You got judges that let stuff go through. They're all like white liberal women. What, I don't know what the hell. Why do feminism is just Satan's ally. I don't know. It's just, oh my gosh, I don't know. But that's just, the whole Hortman, is that her name? Am I even, yeah, Hortman. That's just kind of like a little bit of a icing on the cake, I guess. Like, oh man, for the conspiracy people that just, but you can't be like, oh, stop spread. Okay, well, explain it then. Explain it without being like, Trump. They can't. So you had a Democrat politician who saw some of the BS that was going on, voted against it, and was assassinated for it. Now, did she know about the corrupt? I mean, the embezzling, the fraud of all the daycares and all that kind of stuff? Probably not. But she was looking. But her vote affected the Somalis that were there, and it would have affected this money in the daycare. And this is probably just a part of it. There's probably so much other crap. You know what I mean? And it's not just in Minnesota. It's horrendous how shitty. And this is all, I wonder how, this is, dude. Thank you, Biden. Thank you. I mean, was crap going on before Biden? Yeah. I'm absolutely sure of it. And Republicans do the same thing. But dude, just can you imagine? Can you imagine if Harris and Walz would have won the election? Holy crap, dude. By the end of the 4 years, America it wouldn't even exist anymore, or or the United States, not America, because America is the continent, but it just would have been complete trash, or it would have been. I think it would have been like split up. It would have been broken up into other countries and stuff, and I don't know, man. Like it's just because it's just horrendous, but if you take someone, you want like-minded individuals to provide a service. You want law enforcement, you want people, fire department, you want emergency services, you want restaurants, and you want all this stuff to have your community, and you want like-minded people to ensure that that community thrives. But they have so many people, and there are Muslims who are not hardcore Islamists and just yeah, they believe in Allah and this and that, but they're they go through and they live their lives, and excuse me, they like where they live, and they want it's a good life for their children, whatever. And that goes for everybody in every race, but it doesn't always work though. You can't have like people who are hardcore Islam, or and then, well, in Somalia they're Muslim too, mostly. And the ones that aren't get murdered over there, but it's just it doesn't work. It doesn't work with it doesn't work. You got to have there's a reason why all over the world there were certain groups of people you know that lived there, and that's where they lived. If you wanted to go be around some white Christians, you went, some places in Europe and then the US. And if you want to go visit whatever, they're all over. Now they're trying to bring, but the melting pot doesn't work. It just doesn't, you know, sorry. But, and now it's like, because of all this crap that's going on, it's just gonna, I grew up around a little bit of everybody. I've said it before. My earliest friends were Filipino. Filipinos are like huge in my life. I realized that a while back. So many people. I've been around Filipinos a lot. Anyway, um, I had a young friend, I think, who in this apartment complex was a black kid, and him and I were like inseparable, but then he stole something from me, and then that was it. And then it's just, I, 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 I ate up the whole thing, about, white people are bad, dances with wolves and this and that. And, as a kid, and I thought all the different whatever was great. I've always been more attracted to ethnic women than white girls, you know what I mean? I always have been. And so it's like, to having, a nice mix of whatever. Um, I always was like, yeah, man, we can do it. We can do it. But it can't be done. Especially when, one side wants to get rid of. And, I hate to say it for all my Muslim brothers who I've known and, respected that are, Islam. And I've learned, I've educated myself a little bit on Islam, but a majority of them want to conquer everything, you know, everything else, everybody else is trash. If you're not Islam, and Christianity feels the same way. You should be Christian, but they don't like, okay, not, let's see. So those are the two biggest religions, right? Christianity and Islam. And in both of them, you got, hardcore, or you have like the people who are, yeah, they identify as that religion, but they don't really, whatever. And then you have the people who are devout, but level headed. And then you have the hardcore crazies, right? So it's just the hardcore crazies on the Islam side outnumber everything else. And then Christians, you have, I don't know, right now it's probably more like yeah, I'm Christian, but they don't really practice Christianity. We need to have more devout. Devout is the way to go, where it's like, yeah, you're not afraid to be or say who you are, spread the message, but you're not forcing it on anybody either. Yes, there are Christians that do, you know, try and like force, or back in the day at least, maybe not so much now though, but like just the Crusades, that was all a response because Islam was attacking and growing and attacking, various Christian groups doing the pilgrimage and this and that. So they, after years of that crap, they're like, okay, hold on, we got to do something about this. And that's how the Crusades started. So a lot of people say that Islam is actually that Allah, which is God, but is the devil. And that's how Satan is combating. One of the many ways that Satan is combating Christianity is through Islam. You know what I mean? If you think it's just, God versus a demon, or it's so convoluted and crazy, and there's so many different things. You have so much battling against in every kind of aspect that can almost affect almost anybody. And different, everybody has their goals or their focuses, or whatever it is. But this war of good and evil, it's involved in everything. And I think about the book of Job a lot, which is, it's a story, right? Because there's parts of it where it's like God and Satan having a conversation. So it's not a historical account. It's actually just, it's a story to kind of prove a point, to show us an example or an analogy or whatever. But it's a great one though, because so I'll just kind of, where am I at? Oh man, I'm already at 27. I'm going to do it quick. So for those that don't know, the book of Job, quickly, this guy, he was rich, he had a family, he was happy, he was great. You had, Satan and the devil, and then, and I can't remember if like God's like boasting about whatever this and that is. Oh yeah, and then so Satan's like, well, yeah, of course, they love you because they have everything. If you take that away, they won't love you anymore. So then God was like, okay, well, knowing that Job was the man he was, he's like, okay, here, do what you want to Job, and let's see. So it's like a test, which, if you think about it, it's kind of messed up in a way. But so Satan, gets rid of kills all his family, loses all his wealth, gets sick. I mean, has nothing. Even has like his friends come in and be like, dude, you're a piece of crap because you sinned against God and whatever, this and that. And he was like, no, I didn't. And this, and he never wavered. I mean, he came close, but he still, his faith was in God, and it didn't work. So God, gave it back to him tenfold. And he ended up found another wife and built another family, and had, even more wealth and everything. Right. But the point is there's always that, I just think about that part of the story where God and the devil are kind of just like, oh, we'll do it, like they're playing chess, and just in everything in the world, cryptids, aliens, musicians, movies, music, whatever, everything is just, it's all part of it. It's all, and that's why did I start talking about this? I totally lost what made me think about this from the. Anyway, oh, with Islam and yeah. So I mean, and that's just Islam's a part of it, and then you have Christians that are who think they're doing right and they're not, and it's just there's so much. It's not black and white. I mean, it is at the root of it, but then it's just the whole tree is nothing but gray. Um. Anyway, that's it. Go to church, pray the rosary, and stay away from politics. I don't know. I don't know what to say. But I appreciate you hanging out and listening. And let me know what you think. I'll see you guys next time. And God bless. All right.